Okay, welcome to another video on how to use the Bernina Designer Plus software. So unfortunately this tool isn't available in the creator level, but we can do lots more in our Designer Plus levels, no matter if the version is 9, 8 or even earlier. This tool's been around for a long time, so it's worth watching even if you have earlier versions. I alluded to the pattern stamp tool in my last video when I placed a couple of candlewick stamps on the Valentine heart, and it suddenly occurred to me that I hadn't actually put a video up exactly about the pattern stamp tool. I did do one on quilt motifs from your pattern stamps, which has got a lot of useful information in, and I'll link to that one below, so you can use your pattern stamps to make quilt motifs. I'll also link down below. I'm going to start mentioning at the beginning of my videos some older videos that might be useful, because I know I've had a lot of new subscribers and some of you will have experience with the software already and might have had it for many versions, but a lot of you are new to the software altogether. So I have older videos about some of the tools that are still available, of course, in version 9. So I'm just going to, I just have to move something out of the way off my screen, you can't see that, but down here in your fills there is a ripple fill. It's a little heart shape, and over on the right hand side is an effect called the star effect. So I did do a video way back in version 6 on these two tools, so I'll link to that one below. That's going to be my old video that I'm referring to for this time round, that is useful for you in version 9 as well. Obviously in version 6 the user interface was totally different, so the tools were down here somewhere from memory. You might have even had to go into the menu to get to the star effect, I'm not sure, but this is where they are in version 9. So just ignore when I use tools in the column on the left in the version 6 video, and the theory of how to use them and what they do is exactly the same in version 9. It's just the position of the tools. Okay, now I've got that out of the way, we will move straight into using the pattern stamp tool. Now I have done a video on the pattern run and how to use that. All the patterns that are available for the pattern run can be stamped as individual motifs using the pattern stamp tool. So I've stamped one here which came from, let me just open up the digitized toolbox, and you'll find the pattern stamp tool just below the buttonholes here. So if you left click on that, it will open up your dialog. Now you may not see this, you may see this, just grey outlines. So if you want to see them look like real stitches, you need to click on this show true view icon here, and you'll see them as stitches, which I find is a lot easier to see what the different motifs are. So this is the monogram ornaments, and they're quite large, and so the one I used was this one here for the examples here, and as you can see I've done it in 2 different sizes, and that's very quick and easy to do as well. So you're not limited to the size they were digitized at, but you do need to keep in mind that as you make them bigger, some stitch objects will not work as well, so I'll talk about what to do about that as we go through. And this refers to any resizing of any design. There are lots of parts of the design will resize beautifully, but some stitch objects and some running stitches might not, so you need to check those and make adjustments where necessary if you resize a design. Don't just rely on the software to get it exactly right the first up. Okay, so let's get a new design, and I have to close this first, so I'll cancel that and get a new design, and we will use our pattern stamp. So we'll left click on the tool and it'll default to the heirloom, so you need to drop down if you're looking for the other categories here. They're called pattern sets. And if we come up to the top, we've got our monogram ornaments. Now these were designed to go with the monogram tool, and I do have a video about using the monogram tool, I'm sure, so I'll look that up and link it below too. So let's just take a different one this time. I'll just scroll down here and find something interesting that's got a bit of satin stitch and fill stitch, maybe this one, and go OK. So you select your pattern from whichever pattern set you want, and as I said, they're all available to use, and go OK. When you do that, the pattern you have chosen will be attached to your cursor, so you can move it around on your screen to wherever you want to place it. So if you've got other elements already created in your design and you just want to add this, you can put it where you need it. What you do then is left click. When you left click, it anchors the design to the workspace, but it is flexible, so it can be rotated around the point you left clicked at, which is the first little node, square node here. And it will, you can rotate, you can hold your control key down so that you can restrict it to the 15-degree increments. You can also, at the same time, or if you don't want to control it, if you want to free form it, you don't need to hold your control key down. You can just decide on whatever angle like this. But you can also resize, as I said. So if you don't want to resize, you just left click again. And notice my cursor's not attached to anything. It can be anywhere to do the second left click. So I can just left click, and that will stamp one pattern. If I want to stamp another one, the tool is still available. The motif is still attached to my cursor, so I can now left click to anchor it, rotate it if I like. This time I'm going to make it bigger, so I'm going to hold my shift key down to do that. So I press down my shift key and just drag my mouse. I'm not holding any buttons on my mouse, I'm just dragging it. And you can make it as big as you like. As I said, you must bear in mind what sort of stitch types are used in the design, and we'll look at that in a moment. So once you've got it to the size you want, you can left click to create it. And this one was all satin stitch, and you can see that really pushing the limits of the satin probably in a few parts here. The motif will go back to the default size again, so if you want to make another one the same size as that, you're actually better off duplicating that one. But you can make another standard size one by left clicking twice, or you can make a larger one or any other size. I'll have to go down this way this time, by holding your shift key down. And as I said, you can hold your control key down as well to get that 15-degree increment control. It's a bit hard to see when you've got it big as you try and rotate it, but it is jumping. Well, there we are, we've got a 95-degree increment, and I can left click to create the stitches. So my little butterfly is flying down the hill. Actually, that butterfly is upside down if you have it the way it's been digitized, so you may even want to rotate it over this way. Hold your control key down and left click, and as you saw, even though I left clicked here, it puts the whole design. Now when I zoom in, my butterfly's up the right way. That looks better, but of course it's a corner design, so you may want to use it in a different way. Okay, I'll escape out of that. So to lose this tool, it's attached to your cursor for as long as you need it. If you only want to stamp once, you stamp it, and then you can hit your escape key. So the escape key will lose the tool, and you're back to normal select tool, and you can do anything you like from here on in. Right, let's go back to this big satin one here, and let's go to out of true view. I'm going to put my grid on for reference. Yes, so some of these stitches are quite long. They're nearly a centimetre long. So I would, in this case, select the larger objects and change them to some sort of other fill. So it might be a step fill, it might be any of the fills you can choose. So I'm going to select this object. Oh, it's grouped by default when you select it. So if I right click, I can ungroup, and now I should be able to select the individual objects that I want to change. You can select one object, then you can hold your control key down and select another object, and it doesn't matter what order they are in the colour film. If your control key is down, you can select as you please any of the objects. So I'll probably do these. I reckon I'll just get away with this satin here, but maybe all of those. I'll have a look at these in a minute. But all of those I'm going to change to a step fill, and just the default step fill. So I'll click on that. We'll go into True View so you can see how that looks. Now you can also, this one's nice because it's got lots of angles in it. These look all right, but this one probably looks a little bit dull. It depends how it stitches out. You might want to change the stitch angle on that. So we could just select that one and go to the reshape tool, and it's only got one angle, so I might want to change the angle on that to the direction of the heart. And let's click off and see how that looks. It has got an underlay under it. So you might want to start, when you get really big, you might want to start outlining some of these objects, or you might want to do all sorts of other things with them. So it's entirely up to you. I'm wondering about these ones here. They're quite long across there too, so I might select. It's probably about, well, we can use the view measure. So if you go to view measure, you can check the length of the stitches. Bearing in mind there's a bit of pull compensation there, but that one's 7mm across, 7.45, 7.5mm across. Let me see this one here. That's 9. I think that's too long. The software the machine will stitch that out, but long loose satin stitches aren't very attractive, and they don't always stitch out all that well. So I'm going to escape from my view measure, and you have to press your escape button twice to get out of that. And then I'm going to select, I'll go out of True View so you can see what I'm selecting. I'm going to select that object as well and hold my control key down, select that one, and make them a step fill too. Okay, go back to True View. So this is my motif now, which will stitch out much better. If you don't like the satin because everything else is step fill, then you might want to change these to step fill as well. You might want to leave the little body of the butterfly as a satin because that looks quite nice in there, and they're shorter stitches. Okay, so let's go, let's turn the grid off, and let's get our pattern stamp tool again, and we will go to a different category. So let's go to the Bernina version 5 motifs. There's some really pretty ones in here. So we might want something like this, and go OK, and that is tiny, as you can see. So I'm going to zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to left click, and I'm going to hold my shift key down and make that quite big. I'll make one at normal size first, so I'll let go of my shift key, it goes back to the default size. I'll click, there's one at normal size. Now I'll do large one, and left click, and I've got a large one. Okay, escape from the tool, and let's have a look at that out of True View. Now as you can see, this is a running stitch, and it does not add extra needle points in when you increase the size. So you can see there's needle point on each of these points, and there looks like there's one here and one here and one here and one here, but that's actually turned into a dotted line, which is actually a jump stitch. So what will happen is the machine will actually pause very, very briefly over that spot there and go to the next needle point as it jumps across here. So it will create a stitch as you would think, but it will be slower, and also it will be a very long stitch. So way too long really. But all you need to do then is, once you've got your motif is selected, so get your select tool and come down here to your outlines and click on the single outline, and that will change that into a single outline rather than the long stitches, and you'll get your default stitch length in there, and that will stitch out quite nicely. So you can, if I go back to digitize with the pattern stamp, and let me choose the heart and go OK, I can stamp a heart. It doesn't have to be in a straight line, and I can zoom in, and then I can stamp another heart, and if I stamp it right on where the white cross is, that means that heart finishes stitching where the white cross is. You'll only see that white cross if you're not in true view, so hit T on your keyboard or click on the icon above to go out of true view, and you'll see that white cross. If this is almost like doing a pattern run, but if I left click on that white cross and now hold my shift key down, I can make this heart ever so slightly larger. And now I can add another one on here, and I can hold my shift key down and make that even bigger, and then maybe another one. I won't get any tie-ins or tie-offs between these, but I'll get a run of ascending sizes, or ascending sizes going from small to large, and I'll just escape out of that now. Of course, we don't want to have too long stitches. Let's bring our grid in. These are probably getting a little bit long for satin stitch. So you could make all these step fill if you wanted to. Let's look in true view. Or we could do something else, which I'll show you in another video, which is using the, oh well, actually I have a video on using the carving stamp. So we could carve a shape into these satin stitches, which would add extra needle points in there. I might just do that because I do have a video on the carving stamp, and this would be an ideal use for it. Okay, so I'm going to select that last one, which is the larger one, and I'm going to come up here to the carving stamp, which is this stamp up here, and you've got a choice here of what you're going to use. Do you want to use a pattern which is in all the carving stamp patterns? And there's a huge amount to choose from. So I could go to the Bernina version 5 and I could go down and find that heart. Was that in Bernina version 5? Don't know. Yes, there. I thought I was in that one. Or you can use an object, which means use an object that's already in your design, or you can actually digitize your shape, and you get prompts for that. And so if you watch the video on the carving stamp, you will know how to use it all. But I've just decided to use the heart again in here, in the middle of this heart. So I'm just going to carefully place it. I want to line it up as best I can, so I'm going to left click there, and I'm going to hold my shift key down and try and get it, not my shift key, I'm just going to swing and try and get it, oh, I need to make it a little bit bigger I think, so I'll hold my shift key down and make it a little bit bigger, and left click there. So now I've got a heart shape within a heart shape. So that's another option when you've got long stitches. I'll just do it again here. I'm just lining up the V of the heart here with the V of the stamp heart vertically, and then putting my left click in, and then swinging it around, and I didn't get it quite right, so I'll hold my shift key and try and line up those two V's so it looks pretty, and the points of the heart. Oh, didn't work. I'm just going to pause the video till I work out what's going on. Okay, as soon as I paused the video, I realized what was happening. I didn't select this one. This one is selected, and so the stamp will only work on the selected object. So if I need to select this one and then use the stamp and left click and swing it round, make it just a tiny bit bigger. There we go. So, and you could make it smaller to get down into this little one as well, so that then your larger one hasn't got, it's got some longer stitches, but nothing too extreme. All right. So that's the difference between the pattern stamp and the carving stamp. Now, as if, I'll just close that morphing effect I was playing with because that's distracting. As if the number of patterns wasn't enough that's already in the software, you can actually make your own pattern stamps, and you can use them as pattern runs as well. So to create a pattern stamp, you need an object. Now, if you want to use it as a pattern run, it's important that your start point of your pattern is at the same level horizontally as your end point. So when you digitize, you need to come in at one side on a certain level and come out at the other side on, finish the motif on the other side at the same level, so that you can join them up without jump stitches. If you don't want to use it as a pattern run, then it doesn't matter. Or if you're going to have very small gaps between the motifs, then you'll get very tiny jump stitches that you won't have to trim, so that won't matter either. But if you get into the habit of having the start and end points on the same level, it's always a good idea. Then you've got the option of using it as a pattern run quite successfully. So to do that, I usually turn on my snap to grid. So if I right click on the grid, and up here you'll see the option snap to grid, and go OK. Now when you hover over an intersection of the grid lines, they should turn red. Let's get an open object. Yes, now I've got an open object. You can see that the grid lines will turn red when you are near an intersection. The horizontal one will turn red when you're anywhere near the horizontal one. The vertical one will turn red when you're anywhere near the vertical one. When you get to the intersection, you will actually get a horizontal and vertical red line. So you can snap to any of those points. You can snap to just vertical, or you can snap to just horizontal, or you can snap to the intersection. So they're all useful things. So let's do a very random thing. I'm going to just worry about horizontal. So I'm going to just left click here, and let's just do something really random. Now you can see I've gone out at an angle here, so I really don't want, if I come back and end at the same point here, and I don't have any gap between my pattern run, the top point up the top there will overlap. Let's just see what happens with this one, because it's interesting. You need to experiment and play around to understand the best way to do it. So if I left click here and enter, there's my pattern. It's quite large. It's 3.5 centimeters tall. So let's make it a lot smaller. Let's select it and just bring it down to about a centimetre high. Alright, so now I've got a tiny stamp. It's still got the same points top at the bottom, and they're both on the horizontal line still, so that's their level. That's all I'm interested in. Okay, now we need to make this into a pattern, so we've got it selected, and we can go to our settings option in our top menu, left click, and click on create pattern. And we need to put it in a pattern set. Now I've created some pattern sets for different things, so I've got quite a lot list there, but you may not have anything. I'm just going to put it in my Carol section because it's not a crochet stitch or a hem stitch or anything, so I'll just put it in my miscellaneous, which I called Carol. And if you haven't got a pattern set there, you can create one. So if you have got nothing there and nothing in the drop down menu, you click on the word create and give your pattern set a name and go OK, and then you'll have that pattern set available here. Then you need to give your pattern a name. I'm just going to call this zigzag. And go OK. Now, you haven't created it yet. Down in the very far bottom left, you'll get prompts, but you actually have to create the, it's not saying that, it's auto saving, but you do need to create your line that you want the pattern to run along as you digitize. So I'm going to left click down the bottom here, and you can see you get a line, and I'm going to left click at the bottom of this stitch. You can go out to there, but I'm just going to left click at the bottom of the stitch to see what happens. And the zigzag has been created in the pattern set, Carol. Okay, so now I can click off that. You could delete that if you don't want it anymore. And now I can go to my pattern stamp tool, and I can go to Carol, and I've got all these pattern stamps in there, and there's my new zigzag one, and I'll go OK, and so I can stamp, and you can see that my nodes are at the bottom of the stitches, and so I can stamp here and here. I can stamp another one directly on the bottom of that one, and so on, and create a line of them, or I can make a bigger one, and I can rotate it just like all the pattern stamps. I'll escape out of that. Or I can use it as a pattern run. So if I want to digitize an open object, and I'll choose the pattern run. If I want to choose it in advance, I will right click on the pattern run so that I can go and find it. So I will go down all my options till I find, not that one, the pattern sets. Select a pattern set. So now I can find the one called Carol. There it is. And I can go down and find my zigzag and go OK. And it's got the size which I digitized it at, and the spacing is the same as the size. So it should continuously create without any gaps. So I'll go OK. And now I can digitize any line and enter, and I will get a pattern run of that pattern. And if we zoom right in, you'll see there are tiny little jump stitches here. So when you use it as a pattern run, it actually measures it from the two extremities of width. And if you remember, this top point stuck out a little bit past the bottom point, so it's actually lining up with that top point. If I drew a vertical line down here to there, that's the difference. That's how much further in this point was from the top point when it was vertical. So you will get tiny, but they're such small stitches that you don't need to trim them. They just form part of the pattern. Okay, so if you didn't want those there, you'd have to adjust the spacing back a couple of millimeters to get rid of those altogether. But you've got, you know, so many things you could do with that, and to create abstract designs, or use it for creating grass, or all sorts of things. So using the pattern stamp and creating your own patterns is lots of fun. So I really encourage you to have a go of that, and if you've got any questions or you'd like any other help, please comment below. Hope you enjoyed this one. I'll catch you in the next one.